Hi folks, this is Michael Taylor, host of Theater Corner, and we're here in Los Angeles, California at the Geffen Playhouse. And we're sitting here with our wonderful guest, Caroline Stefanie Clay. Hey sister, welcome to Theater Corner.
So happy to be with you, Michael. It's a pleasure and an honor.
So wonderful to have you here. And so you are here at the Geffen performing in Skeleton Crew.
Yes.
By Dominique Morisseau, directed by Patricia McGregor.
Yes.
This is not your first piece, but you're playing sort of like the anchor of the play.
Very much.
You're playing Faye. Could you tell me a little bit about that character?
Faye is woman phenomenal. She is mother. She is warrior. She is caregiver, caretaker. Right. She's a hustler. My mother is an 80-year-old school teacher from Louisville, Kentucky. And I remember I was describing the character of Faye to her, and I was going on, and things were getting sort of convoluted. And she just stopped in the way that she does, and sort of just simplified it and said, she said, so in other words, she's a black woman taking care of business by any means necessary, doing whatever she has to do to protect her family so that they get what they want, they need, and they have to have. And I said, yeah. So after all the yakety yak, the bottom line is she simply is a survivor. And to quote Dominique directly, she said, we had the blessing to be able to speak with her a few weeks ago. She shared with us that what the characters say in this play, they mean. Okay. Sometimes in other plays, you get sort of double entendre where, did the character really mean that? Or is that a lie? Or is that something that later on in Act 2 we're gonna find out wasn't the truth? No, these characters are who they present themselves to be. They are what they say. And I think from a cultural point of view, particularly given where we are in the world right now, with a lot of things that are not true, there is something very resonant about holding the space for people who are authentically themselves.
I hear you. You're not new to Dominique's plays, and so can you describe some of the aspects of Dominique's work that really speaks to you? This
is my second time doing the Skeleton Crew. I did it at Studio Theater in Washington, D.C. I'm a native Washingtonian. Chocolate City, hello.
There you go.
And Patricia directed it. And I fell in love with the play, and it got extended several times. We were nominated for many, many Helen Hayes Awards. I was lucky to be nominated for Best Actress. Didn't win it, but it is very true. It is always an honor to be nominated.
Right.
I say all that to say that when the opportunity came here, LA being what it is, they indicated that they were like, we're glad she's brilliant, Patricia, but we're looking for a name. Which is real. If I had $1 for every time, you need that sort of you need that headline, you need that person. And they said, we just need a name. And Patricia McGregor, you know her, being the warrior spirit she is, she said, well, that's really lucky because she has a name, Caroline Stefanie Clay, and fought for me.
That's beautiful.
And brought me out here. So I'm doubly grateful to her and to Dominique and to these words and to the message of this play. Very much like the work of the late August Wilson, whose plays, whose canon was a love letter to Pittsburgh, to his city.
I like that.
Dominique's canon is a love letter to her city, Detroit. And these voices and rhythms and relationships and people are about the people that she grew up knowing and still knows. These are her people. And Detroit, that has often gotten a bad rap in the press, economically, what has gone on in terms of urban blight. She's here to say, excuse me, we are actually people of integrity and worth, and a community, a series of communities to be celebrated and reckoned with. And I celebrate that and lift her up for putting pen to paper so that we can speak her words.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. And so just sitting here listening to you, I understand why you're into this genre of audio book reading.
Yes.
And it's just a very interesting thing to work in.
Yes.
And first, maybe if you could describe what exactly it entails, and
Yes.
how did you fall into this line of
Well,
work?
as I mentioned before, my mother's an English teacher, so I've always I'm a kinesthetic learner, meaning that I remember things literally, physically, and orally in terms of what I hear. And I remember being read books by my mother, just literally in utero, words, books. And so I've always loved reading. And particularly in the early 90s, things have tightened now, and I'll tell you why. But there was a wonderful, and they still exist, a wonderful company called Recorded Books, LLC, and they would option books that were not for profit, so they would go straight to libraries. And there was something about that I loved. And I have read over 40 titles, everything from B.B. Moore Campbell to a whole slew of African American writers. And it has been such a gift, because I read all the characters, boys, girls, men, women, accents. I also I have a master's in performance with a specialization in voice and dialect.
Wow.
So I get to study dialects, and it just is a wonderful way. A lot of times, let's face it, folks, a lot of times don't have time to read a full book. There was a super it went from a micro to a mega explosion in the early 2000s, and I'll tell you why. Because folks started traveling more.
Yes.
People spend most of their time in their cars.
Yeah.
So you can pop in your CD or whatever, or however you download, and just listen to audiobooks.
Right.
So it's really been quite an explosion. The only sort of downside is what they now often do is have the author read their own book. And not to say that that's not great, because you certainly are getting the direct, authentic listener to speaker. But there is something to be said about the actor's place as griot, as storyteller, as messenger. So I don't do it as often as I used to. Oftentimes I just haven't had time. I'm just coming off of 6 months on Broadway, doing The Little Foxes, directed by Dan Sullivan, and that was a wonderful experience. And the fact that I am able to sort of practice this fluidity between Broadway and my hometown of DC and regional theater is such a gift. I am, every morning I just wake up and in gratitude, because it doesn't have to be this way. And I come from a history of conservatory training, first at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts in Washington, and then the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. So this type of rigor mixed with practical, being a practitioner, and academia, because I'm also a teacher. Sometimes I think I'm a teacher first, and a coach. It's just the perfect intersection for me. And here I sit at 49 years old, feeling like I'm just beginning, and that is a wonderful thing.
So that leads me to my next question, because you've done television and film, but what is it about the theater? And you always, and you keep coming back.
It certainly didn't get rich. The theater's not where you go to get rich. It is the immediacy of the exchange of performer and audience. the send and receive. You know when something's landed. I wasn't raised in the church, but every summer we would go down to Birmingham, Alabama, and we'd go to my grandmother's Pentecostal church, and I remember the vibration of the
I hear it, yeah.
tell it, that's right. Go on now, come on with it. That level of call and response is very primal, and it means something. And even when you're in audiences where it could be as silent as a mouse, you can still feel when you have connected. I'm also a solo performance artist. I've written 2 pieces. The first, Let It Flow, Radicalism's Rudest Mouth, which is about the life and times of the late Florence Kennedy, who was huge in the women's movement, very close to Gloria Steinem, and I've been working on that. It was my thesis project to graduate from graduate school, and Gloria Steinem got a chance to see it, and she and I have since become friends and are, you know, continuing to build a creative relationship. And the second piece is called Sepia Sculptress, about the life and times of Edmonia Lewis, who was a freed slave who went to Oberlin and was a sculptor and got involved in a whole lot of different sort of early litigious snafus that found her ultimately moving to Italy. And it's interesting, growing up in DC, growing up with the Smithsonian. A lot of people think the Smithsonian is one museum. It's actually a series of 13 museums under the umbrella of the Smithsonian.
I see.
So at the National Portrait Gallery, they have the works all in white Italian marble of Edmonia Lewis. So I grew up saying, wow, why isn't she in a coffee table book? And so, you know, one of my missions in the work that I do as a practitioner is to sing the songs of the unsung.
I hear you.
And so it's usually one of the litmus tests when I know I'm going to do a one-woman show, if I name a person and the response is, who?
There
if
you go.
you haven't heard of her, you're about to.
Right.
And so I stay very busy, and I think it became clear to me, particularly in my early 40s, I was watching a lot of my friends around me, both male and female, but particularly as a performer of color, kind of doing that, oh, the phone's not ringing like it used to, the agent's not, the manager's not. There was a lot of people not making it possible. And I said, I will never, if I can help it, find myself in a position of contingencies.
Okay.
If the work is not there, then I will create it myself.
Create it yourself.
I will certainly be the change that I want to
Right.
see. You really have no choice these days.
Right.
And so it pushed me into an uncomfortable place, and discomfort is where shift and change happens.
This is why no one else should be playing Faye in this play except you.
I've modeled it, and it's interesting. My dad has 10 sisters, so I have plenty of female warrior, African energy to pull on for this woman. And what I love about this piece, oftentimes when we go to see plays, we see people at their best. You know, lights up, you know, curtain up, everyone's fabulous. We see Faye compromised. We see her at a time of great vulnerability,
Right.
and yet huge pride. So how does one function and survive with limited resources and yet move through and then take care of everyone else? And that is deeply moving to me, because you never know. You just, you know, and I was growing up, my mother always would remind me, Caroline, no matter what folks present to you, you never know what they're going through.
True.
You never know what folks are going through. So never make the assumption that everything's all right. That's why a smile is free, a hello, a good morning, how you doing, have a blessed day, whatever affirmation that is, however it manifests, whatever it looks like, because you don't know what folks are going through. And Dominique has created this world where very quickly the truth is unzipped and the patient's on the table. And with that said, it's funny, it's joyous, it's filled with humor and laughter and silliness and all the things that make life worth living. And I'm so proud to be here and to be in this piece.
For the up and coming actors that,
Yes.
that tune in,
Yes.
if you would give one particular piece of advice
Yes.
for those up and coming actors.
What would it be? Interesting. I think about what I say to my students all the time. Be you. There is only one you. There's only one you.
Right.
And that is something that can never, ever be replicated. Now, it can be refined, it can be changed, you can learn, shift, grow, transform, but as you move into the world of auditions and judgment and well, you just weren't right for this, but you're right for that, or whatever, there's only one you. And my favorite poem of all time is Shel Silverstein's Where the Sidewalk Ends. I know a place where the sidewalk ends and before the street begins, and there the moonbird rests in its flight to cool in the peppermint wind. Let us leave this place where the smoke blows black and the dark street winds and bends. Yes, we'll walk with the walk that is measured and slow, and go where the chalk white arrows go, for the children they mark, and the children they know, the place where the sidewalk ends. And that's our future.
All right, sister. And so, do we have? Let's have parting words about the Skeleton Crew.
Come see it, because it is a rollicking evening. It's fast-paced. It's a wonderful chance to watch a quartet, and we are a quartet. We've got each of us are an instrument, a bass, someone, a horn,
Right.
somebody's on percussion,
Right.
and somebody's, playing that real high sax.
Right.
It is an evening of literal verbal jazz. And it really, you will walk away uplifted. You'll walk away talking about it in your cars. Might even walk away arguing and disagreeing, and that's fine too.
Right.
The best theater is the theater where people walk home and they're still talking about it the next morning over their morning coffee. And that is, to me, the reason why live theater can never be duplicated or replicated. You are in for the ride of your life.
Oh my, Caroline, I think the energy in the universe, it all starts right here with you. You're such a wonderful person, and I really enjoy sitting here talking with you. You are so awesome. Thank you so much.
Michael, what a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode of Theater Corner, and we'll see you next time.